Today is our last day of class before the Feast of St. Joseph, which is tomorrow. You guys know I have a special devotion to St. Joseph. That's one reason we invoke him in the prayers before every class. And as you may not know, St. Joseph's the patron of workers. Think of fathers. He's also the patron saint of being Italian. Okay. And so I want to tell you one of my favorite Italian folk tales. I get this from Italo Calvino's collection, Italian folk tales. My kids love this story. I like this story. I want to share it with you. So sort of, folk wisdom, folk tale from Italy, southern Italy, I think. So it's the story of an Italian man who had a special devotion to St. Joseph. Absolutely a St. Joseph man all the way down the line. So whenever he was in trouble, San Giuseppe, ora pro me. Whenever some things went well, San Giuseppe, grazie, grazie. Okay, so tremendously devoted to St. Joseph was he that he never once called upon any of the other saints, or upon Our Lady, or indeed even upon the name of the Lord himself. It was always, San Giuseppe, help me. San Giuseppe, thank you. Okay. Other than that, perfectly good guy, very good Catholic, Knight of Columbus, lots of grandchildren. Very happy. So, he dies, goes to the pearly gates, he gets to the front of the line, he steps forward, St. Peter looks in the book of life, and he says here that you had a special devotion to St. Joseph. That's right, says the Italian. It says here that you never once called upon the name of Our Lady or of any of the other saints or even of our Lord himself. He says, that's right. St. Joseph took care of it all for me. St. Peter shakes his head sadly. He says, you can't come in. Can't come in. Says, what do you mean? This is outrageous. He says, no, sorry, it's very specific here in the book. Faith in Jesus Christ crucified. One requirement for getting in. You don't meet the minimum standards. You can't come in. So a lot of wild complaining and in-your-face protest. St. Peter says, I'm sorry. You don't meet the entry requirements. There's nothing I can do. Please step aside next in line. Snaps his fingers. Max, Bruno, show this gentleman to the stairs. So two big hulking angels come forward to stand on either side of him. And he's protesting. We feel kind of bad for this fellow. Who should go, so walking by on a cloud about 100 yards distance, it's St. Joseph himself. So the guy calls out and says, hey, San Giuseppe, help me. And Joseph walks over. He and Peter nod to each other. Okay, know each other well. What's going on here? Says, just some trouble at the gate, sir. This man claims to be especially devoted to you. St. Joseph says, oh yeah, I know this guy. This guy is great. You should let him in. St. Peter says, no, actually, unfortunately, he doesn't meet the requirements. I can't. Says, what are you talking about? Says St. Joseph. So let me explain this to you, says St. Peter. So they walk off a short distance away so they can't be overheard. Okay. So our Italian friend and the two angels are watching this from a distance, and there's a lot of gesticulation on St. Joseph's part. Okay, very passionate. There's St. Peter, arms folded, shaking his head. Finally, St. Peter says, his voice is raised enough that they can hear him, says, no, and that's final. And he turns and he walks back towards the gate. And St. Joseph calls after him. He says, fine, you know what? Fine. I'm going to take my wife, I'm going to take my boy, and we're going to go have paradise someplace else. So, St. Peter had to let him in. That's the end of the story. Thank you. My kids love that story.